This is a huge thing that I'm a big believer in. Human beings have a horrible understanding of what makes them happy. Horrible.
Yeah.
If you stop people on the street and said, name me 10 things that make you happy, most people will be wrong. And I can say that from personal experience because I've been wrong most of my life.
As your friend, I've watched from afar. I suspect your relationship with God or your higher power evolve. It seems like it's evolved from my perspective. So how has your relationship with your higher power evolved in the last, let's say, post third door to now?
Whew. I personally believe, just how I see it at this moment in my life, that we all, myself included, have a power greater than ourselves taking care of us. The question for me personally is how conscious is my relationship with that power? I think like babies are like completely connected.
Mm.
They're just like, because there's nothing blocking. They have no shoulds, no wants, no needs. They're completely connected. Then as we get older, life happens and our brains start to think that the more we think about something, the more we'll get it. Or the more we try to control, the more certainty we'll have. So I would say the biggest and most profound change that's happened to me has been my relationship with how I relate to the power greater than myself. Whether you call that God or the creator or the universe or nature or life, it has gone from something completely out of my awareness to the center of it. It is the single most important part of my life now, which is to be in contact as much as possible with the force that guides me. Anytime I feel any sense of pain or disconnection, I can actually go back to that higher power and ask for help. And when I was younger in my 20s and my teens, I turned to my thinking to try to solve those problems. And all that happened was running circles in my mind. And that's what we call anxiety, when you just run circles over and over and over. And it actually creates a spiral of isolation. And sometimes my problems would get solved and sometimes they wouldn't. But what was definitive is I was experiencing anxiety the whole time. And now in life, sometimes my problems get solved in the way I want them to, and sometimes they don't. But along the way, it's actually from a place of peace and serenity and joy, which is the greatest gift.
So what changed?
I realized that the way I was living wasn't working for me. I say that from an internal place. I think a lot of people can relate to the idea that you're doing everything you can to do the things that you think will make you feel good on the outside. You are accomplishing, if you're lucky, by the way, if you're lucky, you're achieving your work goals, you're achieving your financial goals, you're achieving your friendship or dating, whatever those things that I thought would make me feel good on the inside. And number one, it was just chaos trying to do all the things on the outside in the first place. But even if I was good enough at figuring out how to do them, it made me feel chaotic on the inside.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful moment in life when you sort of like tap the mat and say, the way I'm doing it isn't working. And to me, it's the start of the rest of your life.
Do you remember what that moment was for you?
Yeah, it was around the time after my dad had passed away. You know, in some movies when a parent has cancer and passes away, I've seen movies where it's very like kumbaya and everyone's standing around sharing memories, and ours was like very chaotic and very scary. My dad was 59 years old, had pancreatic cancer, and fought for 14 months, really to the final days, trying to hold on. And what I couldn't have expected was that my grief in the first year then evolved into anxiety or feelings of anxiety, feelings of depression, feelings of hopelessness, to the point of some days I woke up feeling I'd rather not be alive. I responded to those feelings in the way that I developed as a kid, which is I tried to control the feelings, I tried to control other people, I tried to control my external environment more and more and more. So the more anxiety I felt, the more I tried to grip onto control, which gave me more anxiety, which means you try to grip onto control. And it was this spiral of getting worse and worse and worse. And then I tried to numb the pain by swiping it away and scrolling it away and binge watching it away. And it kept getting worse. And, no amount of therapy and meditation was helping.
And you were quite successful already, right, at the time?
Yeah, The Third Door had come out. It was a national bestseller. It was #1 in Japan. It was doing really well.
Yeah.
So I don't think my life was a sob story, but on the inside, I knew I couldn't take it anymore the way I was going about it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a life problem. It was an Alex's attitudes and approach to life problem.
Sure.
I thought it was a life problem for a long time. And as soon as I said, okay, maybe it's not life, maybe it's my approach to life, then that created the opening for everything to change.
And so you recognized for a long time you were trying to tweak and change and control your external circumstances to get them just right. And like maybe your thinking at the time was maybe I haven't ordered them quite correctly. They're pretty good, but if I just get it right, then I'll feel better. But the very act of looking outward and trying to reorder external circumstances actually created more anxiety, as you put it, or feelings of anxiety, more accurately is how you put it. And you got further away from feelings of peace and fulfillment. I don't think your life's a sob story either, but I also think it's quite universal. Certainly I've had my own version of this moment, and I'm sure probably everyone listening has as well, and maybe some of them are in it right now, where the way I'm living life just isn't working. I'm looking in the mirror and it's like, gosh, I thought there'd be more than this. Like, is this it? So even though on the outside, the circumstance of your life were actually quite good in the grand scheme of things, under the hood, there was more going on than met the eye.
Yeah. And, we could talk about a beautiful conversation about spirituality and philosophy and all that stuff, but I like to be really practical too.
Yeah.
And the most practical realization I've had is that when we think about what shifted in my life, that went from 5 years ago being the most sad, most depressed, most anxious I've ever been to this year, which is the happiest I've ever been, it's been a change in two things. A change in my relationship with two words: control and isolation. There's a very famous prayer that says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That essentially is saying, free me from trying to control things I can't control.
Yeah.
And anxiety is an attempt to try to control things we can't control. So that's one thing. Changing my attitude and relationship on control freed me. And by the way, it's not like I just had this epiphany or I heard a podcast and I was good. It was like going to the gym. In many ways, control was an addiction of mine. I grew up in it. The more fear I had, the more I tried to control my external circumstances. So changing my relationship with control was not an overnight thing, but it was an instantaneous decision to live every day in an attempt to get better at it every day. So changing my relationship with control was huge, and then changing my relationship with the word isolation. Because I always thought isolation was about physical isolation. And I interviewed the president of the American Psychological Association, and what her and I talked about is how isolation has multi-layers. There's physical isolation, emotional isolation, and spiritual isolation. We all know physical isolation. You haven't seen a person, touched a person, hugged a person. Even you high-five a stranger, you feel better. We know that.
We all lived that one.
We know that one.
Yeah.
Emotional isolation, the easiest way to think about it is you're with your romantic partner in bed. They're 6 inches away from you, but they feel 6 miles away from you. That's emotional isolation. You're sitting around a dinner table and you feel like you're on a different planet. That's emotional isolation. And then spiritual isolation is the one that's the least often talked about. And it's the sensation of you're doing all the right things, checking all the right boxes, and yet you still feel like you're alone in an abyss, that your life doesn't have meaning, that you look in the mirror saying, what's the point of all this? You feel alone even in a room of 100 people. You're at work, and you feel like you could disappear and it wouldn't matter. You feel you're not needed, not wanted, and not seen. So changing my understanding of isolation and how I related to it created a new space for me to be more connected to myself and to others and to the world at large. And that's what's changed my life in a huge way.
In what ways were you isolated and which ways were you not?
I was isolated in all three.
All three.
Be very careful what you wish for. A lot of people think their biggest dream is to make it in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very isolating profession. You used to go to the gym with all your buddies and all the stuff. Now you have to be at practice. And, there's all of the things that we wish for, we forget can isolate us. The one I hear the most often is people saying, my dream is to move to New York City, which, by the way, New York's a great city. It's not about New York, but a lot of people say they don't like their current circumstance, so they dream of moving somewhere else, which is great. I'm all for it in theory, but they forget what happens when you land in a new city where you don't know anyone.
Yeah. It's a little, it takes a
even
few
in
months.
A place where you know a lot of people, but they're not your best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have a routine, and you don't know the grocery store clerk, and you don't know the dry cleaners, and you don't know the neighbors. It's a very physically isolating scenario. People think their dream is for their business to blow up. That means you're in the office more. That means you're more physically isolated. So again, that's number one with isolation, physical isolation.
But just to push back,
yeah,
I believe, and I think you do too, just knowing you, that you can't have both.
Well, you can do it in a different way.
You can do it in a way where you're not isolated.
The default for me, you asked for me,
Yeah.
My default approach to getting the things I wanted was it was accidentally, unintentionally, physically isolating me more and more and more. People are like, I want to move out of my parents' house. I want to move out. I don't want roommates anymore. And then now you're alone in a mansion.
Hey, there's a song. There's a song called Alone in a Mansion. Who wrote that song?
But right, like the best times we've ever had, you and I, we're on a river trip where we're like sharing a tent and we're like on a raft with 20 people and you're like,
no phones.
Like everything that you think you want from society, a mansion, a fancy car, we had none of that. It was the happiest week of our lives.
Not even a roof.
Not even a roof. You're eating trail mix and you're like happier than you are at a 5-star restaurant.
Yeah.
Because it was
not getting good sleep, not exercising.
This is a huge thing that I'm a big believer in. Human beings have a horrible understanding of what makes them happy. Horrible.
Yeah.
If you stop people on the street and said, name me 10 things that make you happy, most people will be wrong. And I can say that from personal experience because I've been wrong most of my life.
Okay. So
I have a very passionate about this.
No, it's really powerful. Reorient us.
All right. I'm not the expert. I'm not the.
Yeah, but you're from your perspective.
From my
and you are becoming an expert in this field.
I appreciate that. This is what I've learned. I had this realization this year. And it's taken me 12, almost 13 years now of obsessively studying success to finally understand why people who achieve success very often feel very empty at the end. And the word empty is a very interesting word.
But can I put it back in this frame?
Please.
So if you ask the people on the street, what are the 10 things that make you happy? What would most people say?
What most people would say, and I think most of us will agree, here's the top 7. External accomplishments.
Okay.
Financial success.
Okay.
Let's say, physical success, looking good. Relationship success. You also want family success.
Okay.
You want to do good to strangers, and you want good spiritual life.
Okay.
Great. Let's say those 7. Those are sort of fair things people would say. That's a well-rounded, good, successful life. I've met people who have done those, who have come to me after a speaking engagement and pulled me aside in private and said, I don't know why I feel so empty.
Yeah, I'm winning, but it doesn't feel like I'm winning.
Right. And the word empty is the clue. Because what does empty mean? It means there's a vessel that isn't full. Their bank account's clearly very full.
Right.
But something's not full. And again, the word full, I'm just sort of walking through how my brain works. That was another clue. So what they're looking for was never success. It was fulfillment.
Okay.
And what I've learned for myself is that the recipe for fulfillment is the easiest recipe of all time. Because all you have to do is take that list of 7 things we just named and flip them upside down. and still do all 7, but in a different order. Do it in the reverse.
Okay.
So number 1, your spiritual health. Number 2, your service to others. Number 3, your family relationships. Number 4, your family relationships. Number 5, your physical health. Number 6, your financial health. Number 7, your external accomplishments. And it's not that any of those aren't important. It's the order you put them in. And the order changes everything. There's the famous analogy that if you have a mason jar and you put sand in it, and then you try to fill in with pebbles, it won't fit. And then you put rocks in, it won't fit. But if you first put in the rocks and then the pebbles and then the sand, it all has room to fill the whole jar. And that I've learned is an essential part of a fulfilling life.
Wow.
Understanding the order you fill your jar.
That's really good. That's really good. I like that.
Thanks.
You said something the other day.
I can't take credit for that analogy. I heard it from someone else.
Hey, no worries, man. We're all just carrying the torch, I heard you say the other day, you said a line in passing that has really stuck with me. You said, my life, and it's a way of double clicking on number 1, which is spiritual success. You said, my life doesn't belong to me. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah.
So what did you mean by my life doesn't belong to me?
I spent so much of my life seeing it through the lens of Alex. Of course, I'm me. I'm not like, not crazy. I understand I'm a human being and I see it through my lens. But I saw it through, for lack of a better word, this sounds aggressive and intense, but it wasn't that bad. But it was technically a very self-centered view of life. I saw everyone through the lens of me being in the middle.
Sure. I mean,
this is my mom, my friend, my job, my goals, my this, my that.
You ever heard David Foster Wallace, This is Water?
Yeah.
And he has that passage, I don't know if you remember, he says, every piece of primary evidence that you've ever collected your entire life points to the fact that you are the center of the universe. Like, when I look out at this room, I'm at the center. It's me looking out. Everything I hear, like, it's all happening to me. Right. And so it requires some spiritual growth to transcend that. Anyways.
Yeah.
So just to soften it, because it's natural. It's natural to look at the world in a solipsistic way because we're at the center of our senses. Our 5 senses happen to us. Right. And so that brings us to what you did to transcend that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point that we all, especially as babies and as little kids, as toddlers, we live in a me world for our survival.
And we're supposed to, yeah.
Yeah, we're supposed to. Me. Mom's gone. You're not like, I wonder what she's going through. You go, how am I going to eat? It's me. And then the path of growing up is turning that into we. But that's not easy. So for me to answer, the specific thing you brought up was I just started realizing, what did I do? I didn't, my parents made love and a sperm and an egg, like it's awkward to talk about, but made a being. I didn't grow any of the food. I've pretty much almost never, except on occasion of a couple of fun things, have not grown anything.
We're trying to get you sprouting. Still working on you.
Yeah. Like almost. I'll buy sprouts. I love sprouts. I love your sprouts.
We'll check back in 3 months when you come back on, or 1 month. See if we've greased them up at all.
Everything that's like grown my body. I used to be like this big. I'm now whatever 5'10".
You're now so big, dude.
I didn't do over 30 years, 31 years. I didn't do anything to do that. If you really think about it, it's mind blowing. It's a very trippy 10 seconds. If you just stop whatever you're doing and think about how a sperm and an egg made every single thing that you call your body. A sperm and egg that you can't even see with your naked eye. It's so small.
Mm-hmm.
And it made all of it. And what did you, Mike Posner, do to deserve that?
Nothing.
It just happened.
Yeah, it's a gift.
It just happened. All the food that was put into your body was given to you. Either animals gave their life or plants gave their life. It was given to you. Even the sprouts that you maybe put in the jar. Where did those seeds
Not
come from?
maybe. I put those.
Yeah. Where did those seeds come from?
Yeah.
It's actually mind-blowing if you think about it. And then here's another mind-blowing thing. Did you choose to love music?
No, I don't think so. In fact, my mom tells stories from before I can remember of me being behind the house and the birds are chirping and I'm trying to sing the melody back, like 2 or 3 years old.
Right. You didn't choose
I
that.
think that was came with the package.
I challenge you. I don't actually, but hypothetically, I challenge you to go make your life mission going to Mars. You'd be depressed.
Yeah.
It'll be like fun for a couple of weeks as you learn new stuff, but you'll be depressed.
Yeah.
If that became your life mission, because you don't choose your calling. You didn't make your body. You didn't choose your parents or your family, and you didn't even choose your calling. A calling is not something you choose, it's something you answer. You don't choose a calling. You don't choose a passion. Go ask anybody who just went through a breakup or a big divorce and you ask them what happened. Often you'll hear, I tried to check boxes. They tried to choose who to love. Love, when you meet people who are really in love, they say,
that's good.
One of my best friends, I won't name them, they're friends with you too. I hear so often, she wasn't what I thought, wasn't my type, the wrong age, the wrong this, the wrong that, but it was love. Again, we don't choose our calling. We don't choose our best friends. I've tried to choose people to be my best friend. It didn't work. But when you meet someone, it just sort of overtakes you. You have to answer that call. So anyway, that's my long way of saying all of the most magical things in life, we didn't do, we were given. And it's a blessing.
So that's why life doesn't belong to you.
Yeah. What? And then I get hit by a car. Do I take all the copies of The Third Door with me to the funeral? No, it's not even my book. Isn't that crazy?
The illusion of ownership.
The illusion of anything. A big part of all of this realization started literally on the last week of my dad's life. For 1 week, I saw my dad, who was this like big figure in our family. Big love, big enthusiasm, but also like big energy, sometimes really scary when I was a little kid, when he was angry and rageful. To see him to go into a coma after 14 months of pancreatic cancer, not be able to talk, not be able to go to the bathroom, not be able to eat, and all he had left was his breath. And if he tried, a little nudge of the hand to let you know that he can hear you. He lived until he was 60. Did anything that he owned belong to him? Even his body, was that his? Or was it on loan? And I know this might sound like cynical or dark. It's the most beautiful thing. Imagine someone loves you so much, they gave you this body that can climb Mount Everest, Mike.
For free. Yeah.
For free. You had to work for other things, but this body that climbed Mount Everest, you had to train it and take care of it because it's on loan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's your responsibility.
Yeah, it's a gift.
It's a gift and you got to take care of it. Someone loaned you a Ferrari. If you go like mess it up, that's on you.
Yeah, infinitely more valuable than a Ferrari.
Infinitely more valuable.
You think about like all the smartest people in the world, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, like the barons of industry, the top physicists. No one has been able to create and engineer, architect a human body.
Not even AI.
Not even close.
Not even close.
A human body. I mean, put it like this. If someone were to say to me today, you're going to either die tomorrow or you have to give all of your money, net worth, all of your possessions, and you can stay alive. No brainer, I would contribute that. So right away, that tells me that my life, a day in my life, is worth more than all of the money that I've ever made and all the possessions I've acquired thus far. It really is a gift. And a gift is something you receive without, quote unquote, deserving it. So, yeah, my heart, my body, my life is a gift that came without me doing anything to deserve it.
And if anyone is like me, where I was 5 years ago, if I heard what was coming out of my mouth, I would roll my eyes and say, this is the most unpractical, unuseful mumbo jumbo.
Okay.
So if I can talk to myself from 5 years ago, what
Yeah.
I would just say
Yeah, I was going to ask you that
is
question.
there's a profound practical use to this mumbo jumbo coming out of my mouth.
Okay.
Besides the fact that I believe it and it's come straight from my soul. Let's put that aside. Let's say, because 5 years ago, Alex is like, what's the use of this? What can I do with it?
Yeah.
I can tell you
I'm
what you
trying
can
to
do with it.
optimize this shit.
I can tell you, it will make you so insanely happy that you will cry uncontrollably at times at how beautiful your life is. And if you told me 5 years ago that I would ever do that, I would think you were on drugs. That I would have spontaneous moments of seeing my life so clearly that I would cry of joy. I thought that's not even that wasn't even on my list of aspirational goals. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that anyone does that.
Yeah.
And if I trace back what leads to that, it starts with realizing every single person who is listening to this podcast is more lucky and more loved and more blessed than they can even imagine. Their ancestors ran from lions, fought and killed and survived and escaped concentration camps and were refugees and took boats to new continents just for you to be listening to this fucking podcast. They loved you that much. They did not do it for themselves. They did it for you before they even knew your name. They loved you that much. And that makes you want to cry. You were that loved before you were even born.
If your higher power were to whisper one thing in your ear right now for you to remember, what would that be?
Relax. It's already happening.
If you could whisper one thing into my ear for me to remember, what would that be?
You are a blessing more than you know.
All right, we have some questions from the audience. We posted, both of us, on the old IG. Let's jump right into it. They say, I'm not sure if this question will reach you, but here it goes. I have been through childhood abuse twice. As I turned 18, I was sexually assaulted, bringing all those memories I stored away as a kid back into my reality. Recently, my mental health affected my physical health. My partner broke up with me in the hospital at my lowest point. He said I would never change, that therapy wouldn't be enough for me. Can mental health therapy help an individual change or improve their way of living? That's question number one. Can an individual change their mindset to be set for success in all aspects of life? Question number two. And then they wrote, your album, Keep Going, has been a healing album for me. Thank you, Mike. Can mental health therapy help an individual change or improve their way of living? That's the first part. My experience of life is yes. Mental health therapy can improve all aspects of a person's life. I've had varying experiences with therapy and therapists, and people always say, whenever you hear someone with a therapist, they say, like, you got to shop around. And for type A high achiever people, that can often sound like it just doesn't work. But now I have a therapist who's like a baller. and it's just like, when you find someone you really respect, first, I think that's like really the key, is like someone you really respect. then yeah, I think it can really be helpful. But I think like the question underneath both of their questions, and Alex, you can tell me if I'm wrong, is like, is there hope for me? Is really what they're asking, and they've identified one avenue of progress, therapy, and they're questioning even that. And so what I really want to say to this person is absolutely every aspect of your life can change, and you can have the life of your dreams. And a huge part, the first step of that is creating a vision that actually inspires you. Alex, you gave me a book this year. You know what I'm going to say is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And in that book, Frankl explains that in the concentration camps in Germany, those prisoners that had a vision of their future that inspired them had the chance to survive. Had the chance. The prisoners that didn't have a vision of their future had no chance. And he said of the prisoners that he knew, including himself, that survived, which was a very low percentage, they all had this vision of their future that inspired them. And you'll hear Tony Robbins call this a compelling vision of the future. And I would say that's step one for this person is like, start dreaming about, not even like, don't even worry about, is this possible, but just start asking, what if? What if, and let's go through what number one, spiritual life. Like, what if my spiritual life could look like fill in the blank? What's number two? Like, what if my family life could look like fill in the blank? What if my finances could look like fill in the blank? What if my friendships could look like fill in the blank? And allow yourself just to dream and ask, what if? And sometimes that's really hard. And so you do the opposite. It's hard for people to go, what do I want? They get in their head. So go, what don't you want? And then just write the opposite down and just start to think, what if? Like healing like this, that's goes back to childhood, and there's always some real like trauma there. Like it doesn't disappear overnight, but there is a way, and there's a course of action that you can take, you out there, where you start to go, okay, these are the cards I've been dealt. I got fucking abused. I got sexually abused again when I was older. I got dumped in the hospital. I got my heart broken at my lowest point by the person I thought I trusted. Okay, got it. What course of action could I now take where in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, I look back and I'm so proud of who I've become that I'm actually grateful that those things happen. That kind of future exists for you. And I really believe that God gives teachers pain, because you can't teach people how to overcome challenges you haven't overcome. And boy, I can't wait to see the people that you touch, that you help after you help yourself. It's bigger than you. It's so much bigger than you. And other than that, I just want to say I love you. What do you got?
That's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It was very deep and heavy, big question. I'm very conscientious to not speak out of pocket about things I never had personal experience with. And physical and sexual abuse are very serious things. So I can't, nor would I tell someone what to do or how to go about that healing process, because I've never been through it personally. What I can talk about is many people close to me have gone through significant physical and sexual abuse. And what I've witnessed, in many ways, the honor to witness, is how people have gone through the depths of an inner hell and have become a happier, more fulfilled, more joyful than they had been their entire lives. And I don't have an explanation. I can't write the math formula for that. But what I can say definitively, I've seen it with my eyes. I've looked in their eyes. I've heard them say it over and over and over, which is they could not believe life could get this good.
Mm.
And that, I know water is wet. I know gravity is real. And I know liberation and healing is available to every single human being who wants it. Every single human being who wants it. And I am not naive to think that it is a cakewalk, that it is a take 2 ice baths, journal for a week, and you're good.
Right.
What I have seen, though, with my eyes, up close and personal, is that the most beautiful people on earth are the ones who walked out of the fire and walked back with buckets of water for others.
Like none of our favorite people, anyone's favorite person is someone who just went through nothing.
And I don't say that to diminish the immense pain. I can't even imagine how hard it is. But the question was, is it possible? And I can answer that and say, I've seen
It's
it.
possible.
Water's wet.
So-
healing is possible every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
So we're not giving you the step 1, 2, 3 because we don't have it, but we've seen it happen. I recently got fired from my job. Me and my girlfriend broke up, and I found out my dad has cancer all within a week. Any advice on how to stay positive?
Yeah. Big advice. Don't stay positive. Let that shit go. Let that aspiration go. And I don't mean that you're not going to have positive moments, but that question, I've been there.
Yeah.
And it is, for me, a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And the only reason I can say this is because I'm part of the club. I am not saying.
Me too.
I heard that question and I said, "Oh, which friend of mine wrote that? Hey, is that from my journal?"
It's a control question.
It's a control question. I went through the biggest breakup of my life, and my dad passed away from pancreatic cancer. And then my childhood friend died, and then my grandpa died, and then 30 days later, my grandma died. And I asked myself, how do I stay positive? Years later, only now can I see that the real question for me when I was going through that is this experience, it's going to break me. It is. You can't stop a tsunami from breaking the houses on the beach. It will break me. The question is, will it break me down or break me open? Will it break me down or break me open? And that comes from an ancient Buddhist saying. The monk Pema Chodron talks about it a lot.
Mm.
It's either going to break you down or it's going to break you open. And the most beautiful and inspiring people I've ever met in my life tend to say the same thing. The worst thing that ever happened to me was the start of the rest of my life. And because I love all kinds of people, I know people who struggle in their 70s and in their 80s, and they're still saying how 40 years ago, that was the worst thing that ever happened to them. And I'm not saying there's a good or a bad way to live. All I'm saying is I'm looking at cause and effect, which is the biggest difference I've ever seen between the people who are giggling and dancing at 80 and the people who think life beat them up was not their circumstances. Because I have seen some miserable motherfuckers who grew up in a mansion in Beverly Hills as a kid and had everything given to them. And I know many, I can name them one by one, and it would be an honor to name them, who grew up in poverty, in villages, in the savannah of Kenya. I have met people who inspire me and I ask advice from because they are so wise and their spirits are so beautiful. It is not our, and it's so, I know how fucking hard it can be when you're going through a hard time and hear someone say it's not our circumstances that create our lives. I know if you told me when my dad was dying, it's not your circumstances, I would have told you to screw off.
Right.
Because I was in so much pain. But if this message even creates a sliver of an opening, if I could just pass a little note like through the gate, it would be ask yourself. And really don't intellectually ask yourself. Ask the voice inside your chest. Ask it. Take a pause right now. Pause the podcast and literally ask yourself, do I want this experience to break me down or break me open? Because you get to choose. And that's the gift of life. You get to choose.
Yeah. And that question, how do I stay positive? I'm tempted to translate it as, how do I not break? Like, I want all this stuff's going to happen, but I want to maintain my exact same frame of mind. But let's consider Byron Katie's amazing quote, life is not happening to me, life is happening for me. So if we just do a thought experiment and say that's true, life is not happening to you, life is happening for you, then life wants you to change. Clearly, it gave you all of these presents in
Sounds
1
like a
week.
tsunami. Sounds like a tsunami.
Yeah. And I say the word presence like with compassion.
Yeah.
And so your job is not to stay the same. Your job, that's the question,
That's
right? How
so
do I
funny.
stay positive during all this? Like, because I was positive before, right? Maybe they follow me on Instagram. They're doing their ice baths, whatever. How do I stay positive? And it's not that you want to now try to be negative. No, it's just the wrong frame. You got to consider a new frame, which is life is trying to do something with you. You're not supposed to stay anything right now. You're supposed to become the new you.
Right.
And so I don't know exactly what that means for you, but there's a calling there and there's an opportunity there. There's a window there. And I know in my experience, all of the biggest breakthroughs in my life have come from massive amounts of pain. Like probably what's the moment I'm most proud of? Everest and walking across America. Why did I walk across America? I was in massive pain. I couldn't bear playing in the little sandbox of West Hollywood a day longer. Like the way I was living life wasn't working anymore. My biggest professional breakthrough, financial breakthrough, I took a pill in Ibiza. What are the words? All I know are sad songs. Like, it's just a pain. So I know that pain often in my life, like always, because I choose now, precedes breakthrough. Pain means a breakthrough is about to happen. But it's something we have to step into and also let go of what I used to be. So it doesn't mean let go of all your good habits. Keep doing all those. Keep doing your ice bath. Keep training. Keep doing all those things. But also, like, you're going to get cracked open, like Alex said. And that's supposed to be happening.
And it's a beautiful, it's not an enjoyable process, but it's a beautiful process.
Yeah.
And I feel for everyone who has that question of how do I stay positive, because I went through it. And the self-compassion I've created for myself is, of course, I asked myself those questions.
Mm-hmm.
If you are listening to this podcast, chances are you have a smartphone, which chances are means you probably have social media, which chances are means you've been lied to every day for the past 15 years that life is supposed to feel good every day. And if it doesn't feel good, sign up for my course, $8.99, 12 payments, and I will fix it.
Right.
And you know what? On the last day, right when I'm about to tell you I'm going to fix it, I'm going to upsell you to the bigger course.
Right.
For 15 years, we've opened this device in our pocket that has distorted our understanding of life. It has distorted our understanding of life. I literally call phones WMDs, weapons of mass distortion. They have completely distorted our understanding and our expectation of what life is supposed to give us. You're supposed to look like the person on TikTok. Well, that's not a real person. That's a filter. That's a face app. You're supposed to feel as good as the self-help person who's selling you a course. They don't feel that good.
Yeah, that's why they're making it.
Right? You're supposed to be as adventurous as Anthony Bourdain on this TV show. We know how that story ended. People make trillions of dollars of telling you, you should stay positive. And if you actually go back to the most profound technologies of human existence, the Old Testament is a 4,000-year-old piece of technology. Buddhist writings, the Quran, Native American texts, you will see in these most high integrity traditions, just the fact that they have survived and been honed for thousands of years gives them a sense of integrity.
Sure.
You know, I come from the Jewish tradition. You're literally not allowed to stay positive after the death of a loved one. You're not allowed to wear colorful clothes. You're not allowed to wear white if your immediate family passed away.
Right.
You're not allowed to because someone understood something about life that you didn't. Which is, for 30 days, you're not supposed to be positive. You're actually supposed to feel what life is giving you.
Right.
And not as a form of punishment. But the way I see life these days is it's like a piano. And to only play the upper keys when someone's trying to push your hand to a lower register, to try to resist and only play the upper keys, means that your music is not going to be as beautiful as life wants it to be.
Right.
We are given experiences without our choosing to allow us to experience the full range of human emotion. And once we can surrender to that, all of a sudden the journey has a lot less resistance.
Yeah. I'll share with the listeners something you already know, and it's I hesitate to share in one regard because my serving of pain is much, I guess, on the surface smaller than the person who asked this question, this permutation of pain. But I went through a breakup or a conscious uncoupling this summer, and I felt an immense amount of pain, as you know. And I called you one day, like sobbing, and I witnessed this urge in me to distract myself and numb myself from the pain. And for me, that took the form of urges to pull up porn and masturbate, or pull up numbers of women who I knew would sleep with me like immediately without having a relationship. And I recognized this. That's not even true. First, I indulged for like a week. I was jacking off, motherfucker, because I didn't want to feel the pain. I wanted to numb it. It hurt. And then I thought, I need to feel the pain. The pain is pointing me where I need to grow. That's like the exact spot, like God or life or higher power, or I like saying life with a capital L, is showing me exactly. Like, I don't need to take a psychedelic. I don't need to go to therapy. Just look at where it hurts, Mike. That's the spot where you're supposed to grow. And so I started this.
Run that back one more time. For the people in the back, one more time. Hit that one. Hit that. That was the most important sentence of the podcast.
No, I said I don't need to take a psychedelic or do therapy or go on a vacation. Just look at where it hurts. As life is pointing exactly, that's the spot where I need to grow. I made a commitment, as you know, we've been joking about it, to not masturbate the rest of the year. And I actually said not ejaculate the rest of the year, because that was the way I was going to choose to distract myself. That was the way I was going to choose to not feel the pain that I needed to feel, which was life trying to help me grow. But I knew if I don't feel the pain, I'm not going to get the growth. I think that's a healthy frame to put things in. And this person they're really asking for what's the frame? You know, stay positive. It's one frame of life, but it's sometimes inappropriate. And sometimes you're just given the rocket fuel of grief and pain. And I say rocket fuel. What vehicle is that fuel going into? That's the rocket fuel in the vehicle of your soul's evolution. Right? Because we really grow when we're in pain. As much as I like to think, man, I'm like, dude, I'm really like growing. Everything's going good. Things are going good right now. When the time where I make big gains in myself, in my relationship with God, in my relationships with myself, in my relationship with my friends, my family, it's when I'm in pain. It's a gift. And so we have to accept the gift. Accept the gift.
Yesterday I had a realization
Yeah.
that felt like it took my entire life to realize.
Okay.
Everything in life is designed for either your joy or growth. Everything in life
So
is designed
good.
for either your joy or
That's
growth.
so good.
It took my entire life to realize that, and I had resisted that thought because I've in my life have had grief, resentment, anger, frustration, injustice to levels that will make you want to smash a wall. And yet, I believe now that everything in life is designed for either your joy or growth, which means that any resentment or anger that still lives inside of you is an unwatered seed of growth. And you, as a friend, have been a huge inspiration for me. A couple of years ago, giving me a call and inspiring me to sign up for a few different courses and programs that helped me dig up those seeds that I had really buried because they were painful and water them. And what this past year has taught me, this has been the happiest year of my life. What it's
We
taught me.
crushed it this year.
I'm the happiest I've ever been.
Me too. Me too.
And a part of the happiest year of my life was going back in time and finally tending to the seeds of pain that were planted in me for me to grow. The happiest year of my life had some days of immense crying,
Bro,
and immense
huge pain in this year.
on the floor. And it's been the happiest year of my life.
Because you had the frame that it was for growth.
I believe in my soul that everything in life is designed for your joy or your growth. And a year and a half ago, I had a realization that in many ways broke me free. And the sentence that came to me, I remember exactly where I was eating breakfast alone, and I grabbed a napkin and I wrote it down because it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Numb the pain, silence the teacher. When you numb the pain, you silence the teacher. And I wrote that on a napkin. And I know exactly what the napkin looks like. And it felt like my entire life led to that sentence. When you numb the pain, you silence the teacher.
What's the flip of that? When you feel the pain,
you're listening to the teacher. You're sitting front
feel
row
the
seat.
pain, get the lesson.
Feel the pain, get the lesson. I once heard Oprah Winfrey say, when she feels immense pain or crisis or challenge, she asks the pain. She looks it in the eye, whatever the pain is, the grief, the failure, the mistake, the heartbreak,
self-pity,
the body image, whatever it is. She says she asks it, what are you here to teach me? And as soon as she can answer that correctly, it resolves itself. And it's almost like trial and error. You get as many attempts to answer that question as you want.
Right.
And you'll know when you answered it correctly. You know. And I've been doing that. I heard her say that about 5 years ago. And anytime I feel immense pain, the first day I might not ask it. But by week,
you might wallow a little bit.
By week,
indulge.
Week 1 or 2, though, when I've had my share of not feeling great, I'll go, all right, what are you here to teach me? Sometimes the answer comes immediate, surprisingly, and sometimes I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'll actually turn to people I admire saying, what is this here to teach me?
Yeah.
And so often it's around either control or isolation.
It's part of your dharma.
Michael Singer, the author of Untethered Soul, has an analogy that says, when you have a thorn in your arm and someone brushed up against it and you feel extreme pain, you have two choices. You can yell at them and say, never again brush up against my arm. How dare you? I'm creating a boundary. Or you can pull the thorn out of your arm.
Yeah.
And so many of us, myself included, have created lists in my head of people who have brushed the thorn against my arm. And part of my spiritual liberation the past year has been one by one pulling the thorn out of the arm.
Yeah.
And still got a lot more to go.
Sure. I mean, a theme of many things you've shared today is ownership. You know, owning what is really yours as opposed to blaming others. And so much of the pain that we experience as humans comes from trying to absolve ourselves of what is really ours. And a funny thing happens when you take ownership of a not nice situation or phenomena. One is like there can be an initial sting of embarrassment and like, how did I not see this? Or and we have to be careful not to let that snowball into self-pity or I'm such a bad person. And if we like hop over that hurdle of self-pity, what we find is we actually have an increased sense of sovereignty. And that's because when we take ownership of our own emotions, our lives, then and we realize, hey,
Ownership, not control.
Yeah, ownership.
Ownership.
We'll say, hey,
so critical.
I created, like, I'm so upset because I didn't take the thorn out. Now I have acknowledged that I have the power to take the thorn out. And so when I blame others, they're in control of my life. The circumstance, like when I was walking across America, I remember I met this young man who I think he was like fresh out of high school. And he said to me sort of unprompted, you know, I want to walk across America one day too, but he literally said these words, but I'm too young. And I thought, that's a funny thing. I'm too young. I go, what do you mean by that? He goes, well, I have to get a job and get my career started and start to make a little money. And you can't make this stuff up. Like less than a week later, I remember I was on the Katy Trail, just got to the Katy Trail, Missouri, and I'm walking, and this older guy comes up on a bike, and he goes, "You're the guy from the news?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "The guy walking across America?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I always wanted to do that." Well, I said, "Well, why don't you do it?" And he goes, "Well, I'm too old. My family would never let me." And it's like, this kid says I'm too young, and then this guy says I'm too old. And what I heard, I was pretty intense during that time because I was learning this lesson for the first time, and so I was pretty like gung-ho and direct about it. Is like I thought, you know, like both these guys are full of shit. You know, these are not reasons; these are excuses. You know, they like either like too young, like it's the perfect time for you to go, or too old. And I remember the most famous person that walked across America was Peace Pilgrim, and she walked across 5 or 6 times, and she lived walking across America. And she was like a monk. She only existed off the kindness of strangers, and she walked for peace for like decades. And she was way older than this guy. You know, and then there was Granny D, who I read her book. She walked across when she was 89, turned 90 on the journey. It took her twice as long as it took me, but she did it. And so I'm like looking at this guy, like, you're too old. What are you talking about? And what both of those people have done, and of course I've done a million times and probably doing in some areas that I'm blind to right now, is we're taking circumstances and putting them in charge of our lives. My age determines what I can or cannot do. My family wouldn't let me. They determine what I can and cannot do. And we're absolving ourselves of sovereignty, saying, oh, like I don't have to. We're absolving ourselves of the responsibility of becoming as big as we were really meant to become, becoming our true selves. And when we start to realize, like, these are not reasons. And I had my own, right? Like I had an album to do. I had a wedding to go to. I had a tour to support the album. I had managers telling me this is going to ruin your career. I had all a laundry list of my own reasons / excuses. But I realized these don't control me. My circumstances don't control me. this other person doesn't control me. This emotion I'm feeling is my fault. I did that. And maybe I did it when I was 4, but I still did it. And now I'm 35. I can choose a different path. So I'm in control.
One of the biggest realizations I learned from the third door is that fear is very good at making logical excuses. Fear is very good.
Very logical.
Fear rarely knocks on your door and says, hey, I'm fear and I would like to stop you from achieving your destiny. Not how it works. Fear knocks on your door and says, excuse me, sir, did you know there's a leaky pipe in your back and you shouldn't leave the house until that gets fixed? And you go, sounds about right. I shouldn't leave the house. Fear is very good at making logical excuses. And if I may say so, the smarter the person, the better the excuses.
Right.
The smartest people I know have tremendously wise and clever reasons of why they're not in a relationship, why they're not taking care of their health, why they haven't quit their job, why they're still in a toxic, whatever.
Why they're not happy.
Why they're not taking responsibility. If anything, if you don't have that clever of excuses, it's pretty obvious to everyone you're just scared.
Yeah.
And again, I can admit that. I was so good at explaining to people why I shouldn't ask that girl on a date, why I shouldn't go after my dreams. I was so good at making logical excuses. And then I realized the only person who I was actually hurting with that lie was myself. My great-grandfather has this quote that he would say, which is, lying to others is bad. The only thing worse is lying to yourself because there's no one to call you out on it.
So good. Let's end, Chef. Or should we do one more? Let's do one more. Oh, this is good. What advice would you give to a smart, driven college student who is about to enter the real world, in quotes? What advice should they ignore? I like that question.
Great. Who said that? That's a good one. First of all, you've been in the real world your whole life. Number one. What advice should you ignore? All right. It's a good question, so I want to give it a thoughtful answer. There's so many.
Yeah,
there's so many cliches that I just want to grab it out of people's hands and throw it out the window when they're not looking.
From our in-house college dropout, Alex Banayan.
There's little ones that I always whenever I'm thinking specifically about this age in life.
Yeah.
You're 21, 22, you just finished college and you just started working. I'm thinking about things I hear people say at that age that I wish I could sort of go and just snatch it out of their hands when they're not looking and throw it away. One, and this is not going to be popular or whatever, I don't care. Work hard, play hard. When I hear a young person who just got their first job say, oh, their new job is work hard, play hard, I instantly go, uh-oh.
Because young people play so hard.
And pretty much what they're saying is indentured servitude and drug abuse. Often.
Bro, for the person, did they say high school or college?
College.
Play hard for a person coming out of college is insane in hindsight. And it's normal to them, but it's insane.
So the question was a very clever question, because if they said, what advice do you have? I would give a much more deep, profound answer. But now I sort of have to strategically.
What advice do you ignore?
Now I strategically have to think about what is popular advice that I want to snatch out of people's hands.
Yeah.
What advice would you ignore if you're just graduating college? I would say work hard, play hard. That's horrible. The better advice I've heard, I think I was actually sitting with you in an auditorium listening to Jeff Bezos give a lecture. And Jeff Bezos said that work-life balance is a horrible frame.
Yeah.
Because what you want, work-life balance, work hard, play hard, is essentially the same thing, except one has more intensity to it. Jeff Bezos said it's a horrible frame. What you want is work-life harmony, where how you spend your time at work actually fuels your personal life to be more present, more connected, more alive. And how you spend your personal lifetime fuels your work to be more present and of service and courageous. They should be in harmony with each other. So that's one thing. Piece of advice to ignore when you're coming out of college is work hard, play hard. Normally, if someone's telling you, oh, this is a job where we work hard, play hard, sounds like there's a lot of drug addiction in that office. I've never seen like a monk be like, work hard, play hard. I've never seen like
Play hard is
I've never
intense, man.
even Bill Gates, who worked really hard, didn't say work hard, play hard. He said, I'm extremely intense on achieving these goals. Like work hard, play hard is always a tricky thing. That's one. Another one that, and it's the concept isn't wrong. The advice points people in the wrong direction. A popular saying when someone comes out of college and enters the workforce is you have to pay your dues. Now, controversial. Wait, you have to pay your dues has an implicit message. Because I actually agree. You got to put in the work and you have to learn and you have to grow and things take time and success doesn't happen overnight. I firmly believe in all that. But most popular advice has an underlying message to it. Just like work hard, play hard essentially says don't take care of yourself, don't have healthy boundaries, burn both ends of the stick. That's the implicit message of work hard, play hard. You have to pay your dues has an implicit message saying you don't deserve to be aligned with your calling. You don't deserve, the underlying message of you have to pay your dues is you are not worthy to ask the person you admire for help. You are not worthy to cold email someone and say, will you have coffee with me and give me advice? You have to pay your dues has an implicit message saying you are not worthy of going out and trying to start something, that you're not good enough to try. And it's actually the implicit message that has the strongest hold on how people operate. When people tell me they're just paying their dues, what I'm hearing is someone told them they're not good enough to try.
And I'll wait to try for when I'm good enough later.
From when someone tells me I'm good enough.
Even worse.
Pay your dues means someone is going to tell you when your time is up, when your time is ready, when your time has come.
Yeah.
Someone else will give you permission. And can I tell you something? In the workforce, if you're good, if you're bad, they'll cut you. But if you're really good, they will keep you right there forever because you're working for them and it's going well. They're never going to, a boss never, unless he's a real mensch, and I know a few of them, rarely in corporate America does someone pull their best salesperson and go, you could start your own competitor to this business and take us out of business. You're so smart. It's never been said in the halls of corporate America.
You know who does that? Gary Vee.
I was thinking that. I don't
Gary
want to call
Vee
him that.
does that.
He does call
He's
him.
so good.
Can I tell you why?
He's just an incredible leader.
He loves the people more than he loves his business.
For sure he does.
And I don't know him that well that I can speak on all areas of his life, but the 5-6 times I've spent time with him, the energy I get is he actually loves his employees as people more than he loves them as employees.
100%. And I asked him for help to fill a position this year. And so I ended up interviewing a lot of people that used to work for him that he or people on his team recommended. And all of them were like, I miss working for Gary. Like, it was so different. And yeah, he's just, it's been awesome getting to know him.
That's funny. We're thinking the same person.
Yeah.
That's why I said there's a few exceptions. That was the one that popped in my head. Yeah.
You know, the last thing I would add to that one is I just remember I remember how it felt to be at that time. I remember I went to college at Duke University. And it sounds funny because now I've made like 12 albums. And now if someone says, what do you do? I say, I'm an artist with a capital A. Like, I make beautiful things and I listen to my inspiration and I translate that and I create these works of art. But if I go back to when I was in college and I'm really honest, I looked at all my friends and even people that weren't my friends and they were getting these jobs at like Goldman Sachs to become investment bankers. And I seriously considered maybe that's what I should be doing. Maybe I should go work on Wall Street directly out of college. And it's just like ridiculous. Like, can you imagine me? And
you wouldn't be laughing.
No.
You wouldn't be smiling.
I don't know. Or maybe, God would have put me back on the right track somehow. But the let me boil down the moral of that story is that everyone around you at that age is acting like they know what the fuck they're doing.
Right.
And no one does.
No one.
I remember thinking that,
Literally
like,
none of
especially
them.
in
Not
the
one.
the better university you're at. Like I was at this amazing, and they're going around. You talk to these kids, and they'd say they'd have these plans.
McKinsey,
Yeah.
Du Bois.
Yeah, I'm going to med school and whatever. And maybe like 1% of them actually did know what they wanted to do the rest of their life. But this question of like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? That's when I would get rid of. Don't ask that question. Because when I was that age, or 2 years before, I didn't have the answer to it. I knew I would always make music, but I thought I'd be like working at a record label and go home and make beats and my little thing. And like, ask yourself instead, what am I passionate about right now? What fires me up? What do I want to go try? What would I be excited to try even if I failed at it? This is the time to try.
Right.
You know, you're 20, like go try, go do something crazy. Go do something that inspires you. Go, and dreams have expiration dates.
Right.
I had a dream. This is like a menial example of like, I wanted to go to a hostel in Bali when I was in my 20s. I never did it. Guess what? I'm rich now and I'm 35, about to be 36. I'm never going to that hostel. That dream expired. That's a funny example. But dreams that matter, they also expire. And so this thing that you're passionate about, that you're telling yourself, I'll do it later, I'll pay my dues. You may find after you pay your dues, it's no longer even a dream of yours and it'll never come back. So this is the time. I love you guys. I love you.
I love you.
God bless you. Let's pray. Let's end with a prayer to all the listeners and ourselves. We started with a prayer. Let's end with one.
Great.
You want to lead us?
Sure. Can I make my prayer a wish for them?
No. We have strict rules around our prayers on this show. All right? And I won't have any of these wishes.
Right. May you see how your life is a complete miracle, how your ancestors worked so hard to give you the life you have. May you know that your life is not an accident, that you are needed, loved,
Yes.
and seen by more people than you know. And may you know that whatever you are experiencing in this moment is impermanent, and that there is a future waiting for you, that if you could see it today, you would fall to the floor in tears of joy. And that future is waiting for you to say yes. Amen.
Amen.